Hello. Good morning and welcome. I am Mike Vincent. I have just a couple, before I start my presentations, just a couple of unrelated things to mention. For some reason this morning, I woke up with a scratchy throat. So this is not my voice. I'm not sure whose it is, but it's not mine. I hope that my voice will last through my entire presentation from now until, what time do I have, 2:30, 3 o'clock this afternoon? It may fade. It may fade. This is a little awkward for me because if any of you who've been in my presentations will remember that I don't speak very well if I have to stand still. I usually pace around over here. And I didn't ask the man with cameras, do I have to stand still and stay in this one place for the whole time? I can cruise around? Okay, because I probably will. And if I had to stand here, I would need people to remind me to come back to the podium here. How many of you at some time in the past 30 years have been in one of my trainings or one of my presentations? If you have been sometime over the last 30 years, so you already know what everything I'm going to say, so you probably could go out and have coffee if you wanted to. I said that one already. What have I to do with the general teaching? I am twice retired. So if you're getting close to that milestone in your life and wondering about retirement, this is what it looks like. Right? And I mean that seriously, because the idea of retirement is to shed yourself all those things that are either boring or difficult for you to do. Spreadsheets and staff meetings and evaluations and responsibilities and everything like that, so that in your retirement you can continue to do what you really love to do. And for me, that is talking and training people about general teaching. And I have been doing this for 30 years, actually, for 30 years next week. It will be my anniversary of my association with general teaching. I thought I was going someplace with that, but I don't remember where. The train left the station and I was not on it. What have I to do with Iceland? How is it that I came here? I will tell you, this is my 4th trip to Iceland and to Akureyri. It's the 4th time I've been here. I understand, and I've already told a couple of you this, I understand that with one more trip, I will have honorary Icelandic citizenship. In 2011, 2010, excuse me, I was going in a different direction. In 2010, our friend Kitty went to the General Teaching Conference in Denmark. Is that correct? Denmark? And he met John McGee, one of the authors of General Teaching at that General Teaching Conference. That was his first General Teaching Conference experience. And in a short talk with John, John suggested to Kitty that he bring the General Teaching International Conference to Iceland. I wasn't at that conference. I wasn't able to attend that conference. But the next year, the conference was in Saskatoon, Canada. And on the very first day of the conference, I met Kitty, and he actually also, at that time, he met my beautiful bride, my Margot Lynn, but I promised that I would not embarrass her by bringing attention to her, so don't pay any attention to the lovely lady in the back corner of the room. Where was I going with that? Oh, and so we had a talk, and we developed a very close bond very, very quickly. And almost within minutes of Kitty and I meeting, he began working to bring me here to Akureyri for trainings and presentations. And so, as I said, this is my 4th trip here. And it begins actually to feel like home as soon as I arrive. So that's what I have to do. I've been doing this like for 30 years. I had 17th, and somebody said 18th, but numbers don't understand me, so. The overall theme of the conference is the future, general teaching and its future. And you probably hear discussions about the future several times in presentations over the course of the next couple of days. And so I thought it was probably, there goes my voice. I thought it was probably the right thing for me to focus my presentation on this. Parts of my presentation are as the future is, parts of them are scary, right? And so you may be inclined to duck, run, scream, faint, or run out of the room. But we'll get through this because the future can be scary. And this is not really my topic. I don't. Most of the time when I'm talking, I don't know what I'm talking about anyway, and it's particularly true of this. And so I spent the last several weeks soliciting input from a variety of people that I know, people that are experienced with general teaching, people that have dreams and ideas for the future for general teaching. And so I sent out questions to help me get an understanding of where we're going with this. And the first question I said was, what do you see in the future of general teaching in your location, in Denmark, or in Iceland, or in Canada, or in the United States, wherever you happen to be? What do you see in the future, coming in the future, where you practice general teaching? And then the second question I posed to people is, what is your dream for general teaching internationally in the future? What is your dream for general teaching around the globe in the future? And I got back a remarkably large number of responses. I will tell you right now that some of them are completely and diametrically opposed to each other. They're contradictory to each other. But I included as many of them, as many of these ideas as I could fit in, because I thought it was that critically important that we understand what the potential is for the future. I got more than 30 replies, 30 different respondents from 6 different countries, right, representing 20 different organizations or individuals, because a lot of people that are involved with general teaching, like myself, are no longer affiliated with an agency or an organization that do this independently. So, and that's really a pretty high percentage rate, given the number that I sent out. And almost every single one, every single reply expressed a very great optimism for the future of general teaching, right? And where we're going with what we do. And if that's where we're going, that's where the people that we serve are going as well. So there are some great differences in what people replied, what people said. Hi. I'm going to have to take this off. Oh, is it?
Would you like to use that?
Yeah, I would like to use that. Thanks. Did you turn it on?
He's turning it on, yes.
They're turning it on up there? All right, it must be working now. There's a lot of differences, a lot of variety in the responses that I got in my emails asking for input, right? And Trina, your responses were one of the very first that I received. And they were all terrific. Some responses I got, email was not enough, so some people actually insisted that I get on Skype with them. And Gitta was one of them, but she wasn't the only one. So these are some of the responses that I got, and these are not my words. And then not necessarily the opinion of everybody involved with gentle teaching either, right? Because it is a social organization, all of the principles of social dynamics apply. And that means people disagree or people evaluate things differently. So one person said, in the future, Gentle Teaching International, and keep in mind that phrase, Gentle Teaching International, because this is the Gentle Teaching International Conference, should become a center for knowledge and resources and inspiration for the world. It's a lofty idea, right? A giant idea. I got a response that says, Gentle Teaching International should have a presence in committees, in councils, in conferences of every type. And that reply came up very, very frequently. And I'm going to talk about that when we get to talking about some challenges for the future, about the idea of conferences and the idea of a Gentle Teaching International Conference. Gentle teaching has most often been associated with people with disabilities, primarily people with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And the reason for that is when John McGee and his associates began developing gentle teaching and began writing about gentle teaching, that was their frame of reference. That was what they did, so that was what they knew. And so the very first book on gentle teaching was called Gentle Teaching, a Non-Aversive Approach to Helping Persons with Mental Retardation, right? And that was the direction, that was the arrow for gentle teaching. Here in Akureyri, you've already taken a giant step in moving into other sectors besides disabilities, talking and working with people, with the elderly, for example. Some of whom are disabled and some are not, are perfectly abled. This person said that he or she was confident that as a community, we will stay as closely connected as a family. And that has been kind of a hallmark of gentle teaching, that it is really a familial, close-knit association of people. If you look around the room here, there's probably 100 people that I have encountered before, and I'm always happy to see them, right? And I'm particularly happy to see them if I'm not giving them training. So. This person saw opportunities in the future to share gentle teaching to others around the world without finances being a problem, right? Because it is difficult to travel, it is expensive to travel to different countries or to host a conference like Kitty and Gester and Brynja have done. It costs a lot of dollars. Another item that I'll talk about when we talk about the challenges of the future. Somebody said to have gentle teaching accepted as an evidence-based model to improve the quality of life for individuals. To take a look at what the data is that shows that gentle teaching really does make a difference in people's lives, a measurable, observable difference. I like this one. Somebody that said, and I know who said this. I remember who said this one. Mark, where are you? Oh, here he is, right here. You can take credit for this. That we can take the reins of history in our own hands, and we can create history rather than travel blindly into the future. We can make things happen in the future by what we have done in the past, and we have great success stories in the past. To have gentle teaching accepted, oh, I guess that's a duplicate, isn't it? No, it is not a duplicate. I went backwards. Finding ways to introduce and connect with global partners through technology and webinars, websites, regional conferences, and things of that nature to keep up with the technology of the century, right? So that we can take full advantage of things of that nature. This person said we need to become a group that brings attention to the world on global issues facing those that are marginalized, right? To make sure that we broadcast to everybody the needs of the people that we serve, whatever population that happens to be. Someone believes we need to be seen as the first place people turn to for help, for supports, right? That they don't just stumble on us accidentally, but they think supports, I need supports, I know someone who needs supports. Gentle teaching is going to be the answer for that. To become a household name, right? So that everybody that thinks about services and supports, they think gentle teaching first, right? Just like you think about your favorite brand of coffee or your favorite cereal, what we think of. This one is just kind of a general one. To continue to strengthen our movement, to inspire others, and to communicate a message of unity and develop a clear, consistent message that invites others in. To develop a broad framework or network. People want to be a part of what we do. We want to be that attractive to others who are not yet involved in gentle teaching. Similar, people collaborating and making use of each other's gentle teaching-based knowledge and skills. This is what we're doing here today. This is what Tim was suggesting about taking advantage of the time that you're here to ask questions and meet other people and be proud about what you're doing and let people know what you're doing and find out what other people are doing. To unite as one and explore opportunities to strengthen our collective effort. To get more countries joined. We had a discussion about this last night about how many countries are actually involved in gentle teaching, or at least parts of countries are involved in gentle teaching. And there's not any clear understanding of how many countries actually are involved. A lot. But we need more. We want more. My boss, before I retired, used to say what gentle teaching needs first is more people. More people. To take special care in providing support for those countries in the poorer areas of the world, those countries that don't have as much in terms of resources to support the spread of gentle teaching. That gives us kind of a moral obligation to assist them, to support them, to help them in those directions. This response said, you know, it's hard to do this in the world that we live in the challenges that we face, the humanitarian ones, the dangers, the uncertainties, the economy of the times. It is difficult. But we need to sustain our efforts regardless of those challenges. So that gentle teaching will provide some guidelines how to train people all over the world. And that's that's really my area. I train people, teach them the skills and the competencies of gentle teaching, because it is not completely and entirely intuitive to follow the fundamentals of gentle teaching. There are some practical things that a person has to be really, really good at. This person said kind of the opposite. It doesn't feel very complicated, just to provide leadership in creating and sustaining opportunities for all. In most of the world, most of the areas where we're involved, we've had some difficulty in getting gentle teaching into the school system, where it would be a very valuable tool, not just for the teachers, but for the administration, and it would be a wonderful platform for modeling for the children in schools as well. There's a lot of other areas, a lot of other realms, fields of study and fields of practice that are very similar to gentle teaching, and we need to be able to take advantage of them to make our practices better and offer our practices and our understanding to others. One of the things that we really need to develop is scientific research, and this person responding pointed that out, that we need the objective data on gentle teaching, of which there is not right now very much. To have college-level classes address gentle teaching. There are many colleges, many universities where there's an introduction in other courses to gentle teaching, but very few dedicated courses regarding gentle teaching at the college level. Being a part of bigger conferences on justice, on peace, right, on making the world a better place. We need to begin to think about all people in the helping services, in the helping fields, not just people who are caregivers in the traditional sense, but everybody who provides care and everybody who supervises people who provide care. This person was a little bit concerned about maybe the closed nature of Gentle Teaching International. Cliques develop, you know, it's just normal social dynamics. Perhaps we could be that group that rise above that and be able to challenge each other safely. And to stay a human organization, not a political one. The larger an organization gets, the more structured it gets, the more difficult it is to maintain that family atmosphere. John McGee dreamed of a better future. This person sees our responsibility as to make that dream a reality. And then to see an organized voice advocating internationally. The coaches around the world would exchange more and more to inspire each other. That's kind of what we're doing here. And that was kind of Flores, wherever Flores is. Oh, right here in front of me. More frequent connections. A variety of ways to keep connected with each other. Not just once a year, but by newsletters, by technology and small stories. Items that inspire. And this last one was one of the most recent ones I received. I quoted John McGee about gentle teaching and her hopes for the future of gentle teaching. Any future of gentle teaching will always count entirely on individuals who dedicate their life to support what they believe. That means the future of gentle teaching rests entirely on you in what you do, right? And that was John's belief. All right, do you remember the question that I asked people to answer? Remember the words that I asked? Anybody remember? A dream, right? Most people, in their replies, they changed the wording. I could tell that they understood the question differently than the way I asked it. Because almost everybody, I'm getting confused with these, almost everybody answered the question as if what I had said, what is your dream for the future of General Teaching International? What is your dream for the future of General Teaching International, GTI? What I actually asked, what is the future of General Teaching internationally, right, around the world? Inside, outside of the organization, as part of General Teaching International, people that are not necessarily directly associated with, I was looking more globally at the idea. So, all of those things, they are really nice dreams, right? Valuable dreams, optimistic dreams of people. And they inspire us, they make us want to jump on and go along with them for these dreams. Regrettably, they are just dreams, right? They're really abstract. They're really nice hopes, but insubstantial, nothing to grab onto, right? And to make our dreams real, we have to figure out ways to make them concrete, to make them not insubstantial, but substantial, right? What are the actual experiences and concrete elements of all of those dreams that all of those respondents sent to me? So this is what needs to be done to create the future, to make it concrete and achievable, and to make that dream a reality. One of the things that we have to do is we have to make sure that internationally we make things a commonality, right? We all start with the same basic foundations, the same fundamental principles of general teaching. Culturally, it is not possible for us all to be identical. I think we would not want to try to be identical. The way things are done in Belgium is vastly different from the way things I've done in Michigan for my entire career, right? So, but we do start with the same foundation, the same principles, and the same heritage. We have to find ways to have more effective collaboration among ourselves, right? To get those supports, and Tim mentioned that in his introduction, to get the supports from each other, wherever we happen to be, right? And whatever way we happen to be practicing general teaching. This was a common theme in many of the responses, to reach out to other serving fields, other supportive fields. For example, in education, family-centered practices, the medical field, and even in the field of effective management. We have to take a look at what their best practices are and adopt them, make them ours as well, and to share back with them. Outreach to unrelated fields. How do people connect with general teaching in the first place? And this was another discussion we had last night, right? How would somebody know, if they'd never heard of general teaching, never had any connection with General Teaching International, how would they know, for example, to go on the internet and search for general teaching? The likelihood is they would just stumble across it accidentally, right, with serendipity. And we need to figure out ways to make it more directed, to draw people, to lead people right to connecting with us. I said, I went the wrong way again. The idea of evidence-based practices is incredibly important, very prominent in the helping services now. In order to be accredited as an agency or as an organization, governments and accrediting associations look for the data, the observable data. And basically they're saying, you prove to me that what you're doing makes a difference in people's lives. We know it does, we feel it does. How do we demonstrate that to others? There's a lot of helping services that do have the title of evidence-based. And there's no reason why we can't sneak our practices, our fundamentals, into those practices as well. A lot of things that need to be done regarding universities and schools. One of them is, and this takes place not frequently, but it takes place to include gentle teaching principles in courses that exist now: psychology, sociology, medicine, education. Develop courses exclusively around gentle teaching, the theory and the practical competencies. Creating gentle teaching faculty. We have some really gifted, talented people in Gentle Teaching International, many of them with advanced degrees, but we don't have any university professors in gentle teaching, or at least none that I'm familiar with. And that would be a valuable asset for us. Dedicated researchers. And again, we have a lot of people, these talented, gifted people, who are working on research on gentle teaching, but they're doing that and their real job, right? It would be so helpful for us in the future to have people whose job was to do this research, right? And nothing else. We can adopt other research. We can take a look at other fields of endeavor, what they are doing, and we can take a look at how does this person or this field's research support what we do, right? And use it as our own, or use it to demonstrate our own. I hear the expression very often, gentle teaching works. Right? And that makes it sound like a mechanical process. What gentle teaching works really means is we see, we know, we feel, right? We are convinced that we have made a difference in this person's life. And we know it makes a difference because of the fundamentals that we follow, the principles of gentle teaching that we use. We need writings, lots and lots of writings, not just the academic writings, not just research papers or educational material. We need simple and clear explanations of gentle teaching, right? Simple writings that will not only be appealing to, but helpful to caregivers, the people that, in most cases, actually do the work that many of us say we do. The caregivers, right? And as always, it's always been very valuable to have these little stories of people and their experiences that inspire us and keep our motivation up. We need comparable training across Gentle Teaching International. Not identical training, but comparable training. And that means that we need to develop recommendations for what a person needs to be able to do, what a person needs to understand in order to be called a gentle teacher or a mentor, right? So that everybody has the same understanding of what the skills of general teaching are. They may train it, they may develop it in different fashions, but the starting point has to be identical. Most of the conferences where general teaching takes place are general teaching conferences. It's either a regional general teaching conference or the annual General Teaching International Conference, right? But we need to find ways to sneak our presentations into other people's conferences, right? To apply and provide presentation proposals outside of the general teaching community, because we want to be known, we want to be heard, and we want to spread, and we want, like my boss said, to attract more people to general teaching. If we can't present at some of these other conferences or forums or things like that, perhaps we can get a desk in the hallway, a table in the hallway with our materials, with our advertising. I don't know if I didn't explain that first line, did I? Is it forums or fora? Forum is a Latin word, and it's a Latin neuter word, and the Latin neuter words are always fora, but I've never heard it said that way, and that's Latin trivia. All of us are very convinced about general teaching. We're passionate about general teaching. What we need is a group of people who are actually activists, whose sole function is to go out and raise awareness about general teaching and beat on doors and talk to government officials and talk to the people with the dollars and people that make our cause, like it says here, loud, proud, and public. We need those. All right, all of that sounds really great, right? Should sound great. But is it real? How am I doing on time? Are we good? What time is it? 10:50. Okay, we got plenty of time. Probably. I'm going to stand over here for a few minutes. Is this one still on? Yes? No? It is? Okay. This is reality. There's some real challenges that we face in the future of general teaching. Things that we have to address. We can't avoid, we can't ignore. And, oh, I thought you were saying Mike. Things that we cannot ignore, and things that we have to address honestly. And as in a roundtable discussion last night, where a lot of these ideas came up for discussion. And I wanted everybody to understand that I didn't wait until that roundtable discussion last night to write my presentation. Actually, we were thinking along parallel lines. Who's going to answer all of these challenges and who's going to resolve them? We all have to be involved in that. We all have to have a part in that. Regardless of our opinions, regardless of what side of the question we happen to be on, it's important that we contribute to solutions or resolutions. One of these difficulties is, and there's not any universal agreement on this, is what do you mean when you say general teaching? What exactly is the definition of general teaching? All right? If you looked it up in a dictionary or an encyclopedia, what would you see? For 30 years, it has not existed. And I'll give you a little bit later, I'll give you my definition of gentle teaching. Is gentle teaching an intervention strategy? Okay. Some of the replies that I got defined it, described gentle teaching as exactly that. Is a way you intervene in somebody's life. That presupposes that you use gentle teaching for people with difficulty, people facing problems or challenges of their own. Right? The opposite of that is that some people describe gentle teaching as a philosophy, a belief system, right? In which case it would apply to anybody, everybody, not just people with disabilities, not just people with challenges. Wrong way. What is exactly a gentle teaching organization? What does that mean that an organization is a gentle organization? Right? Is it because they have a lot of gentle teaching mentors? Or is it because they have the dollars to support gentle teaching? We need to figure out exactly how you identify and recognize gentle teaching, because we want recognition for our organizations. For example, Tim's organization. We want standards that people will identify for a gentle teaching organization. I talk about our group here, Gentle Teaching International. And again, 180 degrees difference in these two. Some people believe very strongly it should be an open network. Right? A loose affiliation, which it was, gentle teaching was, for most of my experience. The idea of a structure and a board of directors is relatively recent occurrence. Or it should be a closed, structured membership organization. Apply and pay your dues and submit your credentials. Is there a physical center of the universe for gentle teaching? Is there a Rome or a Jerusalem for gentle teaching? Or should there be? Or should there be many such? And we have to sort this out. We have to figure this out. Is the focus, the reputation, solely on developmentally or intellectually disabled people, or can we break into more and more fields? Is it just on marginalized populations or on anybody that you happen to encounter? Does it include people that you meet in a restaurant or friends or family or things like that? Is it specific to the populations of the disabled or elderly in Akureyri or in the whole city of Akureyri? And then, can you have one without the other? Can you have gentle teaching supports for people in marginalized, people with disabilities in Saskatoon, for example, without it having an effect on the city of Saskatoon? There's always a riddle of international approach, varieties of cultures, the variations of language, right? The different ways that languages develop and the words that they use. And the word gentle teaching in English are far different from the word used in Icelandic for the same principles, for the same idea. Everybody has money problems, right? What we do is expensive. Costs a lot of dollars to support people. Costs a lot of dollars to support people with gentle teaching. All right, this is another riddle, all right? Technology versus what the word social really means. So the word social comes from a Latin word that means companions. right? Friends, companions, which is really close to the definition, or my definition of gentle teaching anyway, right? But a little further away from the technology of social media. What about the organization? Can anybody get in, just send in your name and you're a member of Gentle Teaching International? Or do we need to know what your background, what your application of gentle teaching is, what your commitment to gentle teaching is? Somebody actually asked me this in their reply. Although we think regional associations of gentle teaching, like in North America or in Europe, are good things, would their development decrease the participation in Gentle Teaching International? Would it divide the resources too much for what we do? What about the democracy of gentle teaching, right? Everybody has an equal say, even if there's 5,000 members around the world. Or do we have a directorship of people that make the decisions and vote on the decisions? How exclusive is the decision-making process and the power? We have to overcome a lot of the common reputations and common misunderstandings about gentle teaching. And one of those, and I've heard this probably 10,000 times, this will work for people with mental retardation, with intellectual disabilities, but it isn't going to work for people with mental illness. It's not going to work for troubled teenagers. It's not going to work for union negotiations or anything else. And that has been its reputation for a very long time. The cult of John McGee, right? People that are really defensive about their practices, about their education, about their credentials, will commonly make this accusation that we're all just a bunch of John McGee groupies, right? Perhaps even approaching religious fanaticism, right? As opposed to a practical practice, a practice that does help people. Non-scientific approach in a scientific arena. If you think about people with disabilities or people that need supports only as a number of problems, a number of challenges in their life, then a scientific approach makes a difference. But if you think about somebody that we serve as the whole person, then it's not just a matter of science. I like this expression that somebody sent me, a toxic brand, right? People hear the expression gentle teaching and they back away, they duck and run, right? They say, I don't want none of that, right? And you hear that. Or applying the principles of gentle teaching, but to avoid the association with that toxic brand, naming what we do something else. And there's quite a number of different names, even in Gentle Teaching International, that don't use the term gentle teaching. We had this discussion for a bit last night. I believe, by and large, we are the only gentle teaching group in the world. But we are not the only ones that call what we do gentle teaching. There's lots of other people saying what they do is gentle teaching. Bears absolutely no resemblance to what we really do. What about the Gentle Teaching Conference, right? If we come to a Gentle Teaching Conference, and I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about almost exclusively where people talk about gentle teaching is at Gentle Teaching Conferences. I'm going to assume that the vast majority of you already have the conviction of gentle teaching,
in here, right? And so we can give the perception that when I finish talking and you go on to the next presentation, basically you're going to hear the same thing again. And then all through the 3 days that everybody's going to be basically saying the same thing over and over again. And if you listened to Mike Vincent in 1986, there's not a whole lot of difference from what he says in 2016 either, right? We've got to make sure that is not the case, that we continue to develop and assess what general teaching is and analyze it and find new ways of explaining it. It costs a lot of money to put on a general teaching conference. It really does. Incredible amount of money, because most of us paid a whole lot of money to get here, to be here. Maybe there's some other better uses for those money, ways to really directly help people and support people. Right? And this is one side of that viewpoint. The other side of this expenditure of money is that it is important for us, that it sustains us, it motivates us, it educates us, right? It connects us to other people who can provide resources to us. Some people will believe the General Teaching Conference is just an opportunity to get together and have fun and hang out with nice, friendly people, because we know general teachers are nice, friendly people, right? And maybe there's a pretense of an actual professional conference. That can be real depressing, right? It can be real discouraging to think about all of these things. Believe this, all of these things have resolutions. All of these things can be addressed in a positive fashion and improved. Probably not solved completely, probably never solved completely. But believe this about solving these problems, that they are real, that they do exist. And if I didn't believe that before, sitting in this discussion roundtable last night, when other people were coming up with the same ideas, the same perceptions, the same explanations, the same descriptions of all these challenges, and I hadn't said anything about any of these, but they were identical. Believe this, we got to face these. We got to address these things, right? We cannot ignore them or pretend them away, right? We got to take care of them. Because if we don't, they will get worse, or they will affect what we do in an ever worsening fashion. We do have to take care of those challenges. If we resolve one of these, you can almost guarantee that other ones are going to get worse. Fixing one thing breaks something else, inevitably. It's a sad reality, but this is always going to be true, all right? You can't convince everybody. You can't persuade everybody. People's opinions, people's ideas about all these challenges are not just intellectual. However much we believe ourselves to be rational beings, their emotions, their feelings, their defensiveness, really get in the way of some of these. And, you know, we're not going to save everybody, right? Some people are going to say, no, this is not for me anymore because this is not what I want general teaching to be. People in both directions. I mentioned this earlier. Excuse me. I mentioned this earlier. We have a responsibility, each and every one of us has a responsibility to be part of the solution to these challenges. We cannot leave it to the officials of General Teaching International or the people with the most energy and the most enthusiasm and say, Kitty, you fix this problem. we all have to have a part in solving this problem and contributing to it, right? And it may not wind up the way you want it perfectly, but you will have a part of the solution, a part of the resolution, and that will be something you own. So I always, in every presentation and in every training I do, I expect genuine commitments from the people in my audience, the people in my classes, right? That you don't just believe, but you put it in practice, that you make a commitment that is real, right? Something that you're really going to do, not just, you know, a pretense of a commitment. It's like a commitment is like when you get married, right? Your commitment is not that you say, well, I'll try to be faithful. Yeah. Some people might be thinking that, but you better not say that at the wedding. It's got to be realistic. Make a commitment to your contribution to gentle teaching and to facing some of these challenges that you really can accomplish, right? You cannot set up an endowment of $1 million if you don't have $1 million, right? You can't say, I'm gonna solve all of the problems of gentle teaching. Pick the ones that you can actually achieve, things that you can actually contribute to in resolving. These have got to be concrete, right? Things that I will do. Not that I'll believe, not that I will think, but I'm going to actually put into practice, right? I'm going to make the actual physical changes that need to be made. Commitments are real. This I will do, right? This we will do. Not we're going to try, not we're going to believe, not I'm going to change my thinking, I'm going to change my feel, but I'm going to do something. I will do it. And commitments are never secret resolutions, right? If you make a commitment to somebody or you make a commitment to an organization, that person or that organization, they need to know that commitment that you're making. So when you make a commitment, just like when you get married, you make it loud, proud, and public. You say the words. If you join the military, you raise your hand and you say the oath of enlistment out loud, right? I'll try to be patriotic, right? No, you gotta say the words of wear the uniform and carry the weapon. So we started out by talking about asking, what is gentle teaching? What does that mean? The idea of gentle teaching, right? The fundamentals, of course, there's a lot to know and to experience in gentle teaching, but there's really only 9 basic fundamental things, and everything else about gentle teaching is built on these 9 things. The central purpose, the 4 pillars, and the 4 tools. Let me describe the history behind these things first before I talk about any of those. John McGee, way back in late 1980s, he defined the central purpose of gentle teaching in this way. He defined it as the central purpose of caregiving is to teach the experience of companionship. And it was that short and that concise. We've talked for decades about the 4 pillars, and they usually come out, the 4 pillars, as safe, loved, loving, and engaged, right? Safe, loved, loving, and engaged, just over and over again. Like a spelling list, or like multiplication tables. And the same with 4 tools. Words, eyes, hands, presence. 4 tools. So over the years, and this responsibility will fall on many of you in the future, over the years I have given these things a lot of thought and expanded them and developed them so that they really do enunciate, express what we do and what we believe. And I had to analyze, what is it about the central purpose that's important to us? Okay? When we talk about the 4 pillars, what are we saying about these 4 things? Right? And so these are the 4 pillars as I have developed them. I think I missed a slide here. What I was going to say is we will eventually, we will come up with a definition of gentle teaching. Words in the dictionary or something that defines gentle teaching. But in each and every one of us, right, based on our values, based on our experience, based on our own feelings, we're going to internally have our own definition of gentle teaching. What does gentle teaching mean to me, right? And so this is a description of what it means to me. The central purpose is our explanation of why we do what we do. What's the purposefulness of our efforts, right? And for me, that is, just like it says here, the central purpose of our presence in each other's lives is to create, share, and sustain the experience of connectedness, companionship, and community. Right? This actually describes a word that John did not particularly care for. He didn't like the lack of feeling in the word reciprocity, in the reciprocal relationship. It wasn't the idea that he didn't like, he just didn't like the word, but this is what it describes, that when I enter into somebody's life in a supporting fashion, in a services fashion, or just in a random and casual encounter, this is why I do so, for every encounter, every relationship that I go into. 4 pillars. These are communications. These are emphatic statements. These are things I want you to know, to believe, right? To feel that you are safe with me, always in every fashion, unquestionably. That you are loved unconditionally. My feelings and my treatment of you are unrelated to your behavior, to your acceptance of me or your rejection of me. I'm not going to change the way I relate to you. You can learn to be loving. You can learn the skills of lovingness. What a person says, how a person acts, how a person smiles, right? You can learn those things from me, right? Even if you already know them from in other relationships, you can learn them in our relationship. And then the last thing, the engagement. It is good to be with, do for me, do things for yourself, do things for others. So those are those emphatic communications, and that's what the pillars are. And then the last one, the tools. This is how we communicate those pillars. This is the fashion we have. We are concrete physical beings. Most of us are not yet angelic beings. So we need physical, concrete, sensory ways to communicate, safe, loved, loving, and engaged. I wrote these as absolutes. Speak only kindly. Never say an unkind word. Never say a careless word. And I know that's not realistic, but I say these in absolutes. Look only warmly, to emphasize how incredibly important these concrete ways are. Touch only gently and respectfully, and be there with and for the person in every dimension, not just physically present, but emotionally and attentively. Each of us defines within ourselves the meaning of gentle teaching, notwithstanding our collective understanding of the term, right? Even though we can all say the same words, the same central purpose, the same pillars, the same tools, in your heart, in your feelings, in your understanding, you will come up with your own definition. That's my understanding of gentle teaching. Gentle teaching is not something we do. And again, this is my definition. It's not something we do at all. We don't do general teaching. General teaching is how we do what we do. If you're a nurse, you do nurse things, right? And general teaching is how you do those nurse things. If you're a big boss or a high manager or supervisor, that's what you do. You supervise and manage and direct, and you do it with general teaching. Okay? If you're a caregiver, you help people into wheelchairs, out of wheelchairs, fix their meals, right? Help change their clothes and things like that with general teaching. But those are the things we do. And because of that, general teaching is the way that we make a difference in people's lives. This is what really impacts people. So that's my definition of general teaching for myself. That's all I know. After 30 years, I haven't learned any more than that, right? So if you listened to me in 1986, I just said the same thing all over again. All right? Or you want more? You don't want a break. Thank you very much.